Other big news from Tuesday, and I don't know how big this really is, the comings and goings of kickers making it into Seg 1, but here's the reality. Right now in the NFL, when it comes to kickers, there are the haves and the have-nots. There are the teams that are fortunate enough to employ a guy that can trot out there and reliably kick a 50-yard field goal like it's an extra point and boom a 60-yarder or longer when it's needed. And I remember a time where trying a 60-yard field goal felt like buying a lottery ticket. Like, this thing doesn't have a friggin' chance. Are you have 60 yards? Well, there's nothing else they can do. It's either a 60-yard field goal or a Hail Mary. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. That's how it used to feel. Now, Chris Boswell comes out, game on the line, 60-yarder, never in doubt, would have been good from 70. We're seeing guys hit from more than 60. We saw a 70-yarder in the preseason from Cam Little of the Jaguars. It's just a matter of time before somebody kicks a 70-yarder in a game. Somebody was saying Joey Sly, who's he play for? He play for? He's been, these kickers move from team to team. But whoever Joey Sly plays for, his head coach said you could always he's with where's John Fossil? Is John Fossil in Carolina?
Where's
Tennessee. John Fossil now?
Tennessee, yes. Because I watched him last week. That's why I just couldn't remember which game I watched him in. Yes, it was Tennessee, and he was in Denver, which is a place where, he probably could make a 70-yard field goal because of the altitude.
So, and we're getting to the point where you don't need altitude to make a 70-yarder. So that's all the setup to say this. If you got a guy that's missing, kicks of what is now not very far distance, and he's missed 16 of 62 field goals since entering the league as a third-round pick in 2023, there's a point where you have to cut the cord. And I'm not a big fan of drafting kickers that high anyway because I think it puts extra pressure on them. Roberto Aguayo, remember when the Bucs used a second-round pick on him? Sebastian Janikowski, although he panned out, he was a first-round pick of the Raiders. So many kickers are undrafted, and they go from team to team, and they hover around until they're able to establish themselves in the moment. Jake Moody just never did. It has always felt like he's been kind of on thin ice. And after the win over the Seahawks, felt like a loss. On Sunday, Moody had missed some kicks, and Kyle Shanahan said he's sticking with him. But if you read the full context of the quote, it's clear that feeling was subject to change. And by yesterday, stoink, it did change. And the 49ers have moved on from their third-round pick from 2023. Jake Moody, because he's not a vested veteran, he hits waivers. And I don't know that anybody's going to want him. Now, it may just be he needs a change of scenery. It may be that thought. One of these other teams that has a kicker that can't make kicks like the Browns and the Falcons, they might decide to give Jake Moody a shot. I don't know. But we know this. He's out in San Francisco.
What's interesting to me is that a lot of times you see these kickers that get picked. Daniel Carlson comes to mind with the Vikings, where it doesn't work out at the first stop. But then, boom, he goes to the Raiders, and he has been one of the best kickers in the National Football League over the last several years. And so I don't know if that's what's going to happen for Jake Moody or not. You mentioned the Browns. Hey, man, if he clears waivers, I think it would be better for them just roster-wise on their 53. But bring him in there, and let's give the young guy, Andre Schmidt, some competition, especially after what we saw last week between the Browns and the Bengals. But, I think they're onto something that, having that extra pressure put on you by being a mid-round pick is something that can kind of harm kickers a little bit, because all you have to do is go out there and make your kick, but it's a very high pressure situation. And if you can't handle that high pressure situation, and then everybody has to keep defending you and defending you and defending you. I mean, we're in year 3 of this. That's why they had to move on, because your quarterback is dealing with a couple injuries, right? Your best tight end, one of your best pass catchers, if not your best pass catcher, just went on IR. You got other receivers that are hurt. You need a reliable field goal kicker right now if you are the San Francisco 49ers, because you need every single point you can get. And if you have to keep defending your kicker who can't make kicks from 30 in, it's just not tenable, I don't think, with the rest of the locker room, because how are you going to say, we're not going to do what we need to do to be more successful in bringing competition at this point, at this position, when literally, if you miss kicks, it can cost you games, right? So that's why I think at this point, the 49ers just had to move on.
Oh, 49ers fans will remember that Moody missed an extra point in Super Bowl 58. Now, look, it's not enough to just say, well, if the 49ers had that one more point, we wouldn't have gone to overtime, but every point matters. Every single point matters, whether it's 3 or whether it's 1. And with the touchback point, now the 35, you're not far away from being in range for some of these good kickers. And as you said, Myles, it's high pressure, it's high stress. Chris and I were talking about it the other day. It's all in the head. Like Chubb said, it's all in the hips. For kickers, it's all in the head. And once you lose that edge, it's hard to get it back. And the Vikings were the ones who had drafted Daniel Carlson before releasing him. I remember when the Vikings had Blair Walsh, who was one of the best kickers in the NFL. And then 27-yarder, wide left, with a playoff game on the line against Seattle, that magical day out in the open air where Bud Grant's there in a polo shirt when it's below 0, and that game was over. And Seattle's 2-time Super Bowl run in the NFC was going to end in Minnesota, and he missed that kick, and he was never the same after that. And the Vikings stuck with him longer than they should because teams fear by cutting someone, you give them the ultimate wake-up call, and then they go somewhere else, and they're the guy they used to be for you. So you want to try to get the guy to feel like he's had that wake-up call without having to cut him. But sometimes what you have to do is just cut him. And that may be the PS for this. Jake Moody goes somewhere else and becomes one of the 60-plus yard field goal kicking cyborgs that are now populating the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I mean, it happens a lot where you have one kicker who gets displaced and then he goes somewhere else and then he does something really well. I mean, look, it's an argument on a larger scale, or like a more important position, but this is what Chris Ballard has been saying about Anthony Richardson, right? Like they want him to be able to figure it out for them and not they cut him and the light comes on and then he does it somewhere else, like it did for Baker Mayfield, or you could say that about Sam Darnold in some ways, or whatever player you want to talk about. But I mean, if you go down, the scale of, I guess, importance on a football field, quarterback, kicker, la la la. But this is the same kind of principle. That's why you stick with your draft picks, especially if he's a mid-round pick, because there's a reason you picked him that high in the first place. You thought that, based on what he had done in the past at college, that he could translate that to the NFL. But it's different when you're a kicker and you can't make your kicks, and there are 32 teams and there are more than 32 kickers available. Are they all good? Absolutely not. But at a certain point, you just got to try something else, because how can you then sell that to the rest of the team where, if your linebacker, right? And the 49ers is probably a bad example of this because they got Fred Warner. But let's say their second linebacker, right, is not performing up to snuff. Well, he's going to get replaced, and probably a lot quicker than you would the kicker sometimes. So that's why you at this point, the 49ers just have to do it, because we're in year 3 of this and he still can't make kicks like that. It's just, unfortunately, it's just what it is.
Well, and that's why I was surprised when we talked on Monday about Kyle Shanahan standing behind Jake Moody, sort of, if you ignore the full context, but at least saying immediately after the game, he's still my guy, because every player on the roster, every starter, everyone who ever goes on the field is subject to that standard of, are you the best option I have? Because the moment you're not, you're done. And we're going to find somebody else. And kickers are the easiest ones to replace. They're the most fungible property and commodity in football, because you plug one out, you plug the other one in. He doesn't need to know the playbook. He doesn't need to know how. He just needs to know the snap, hold, kick. That's it. Yeah. If you are comfortable with the snapper and the holder, then that's the only transition you have to make. And pop quiz. Now, this happened before you were born, but not long before you were born. What is the ultimate example of a team giving up on a player when they were just at their wits' end, and that player then going elsewhere and becoming a Hall of Famer? Do you know?
Number
Do you
4,
know?
Green Bay Packers, Brett Favre, who was traded from the Atlanta Falcons.
Well, yeah.
That's not who you're thinking of?
I had a different one in mind.
Okay.
That's not who I'm thinking of, because I don't think.
I don't know. An acceptable answer, though? I mean, like, wait a minute. I'd have to go back and reread Jeff Pearlman's Brett Favre biography. I don't think the Falcons were at their wits' end. I know it was a weird year, and it was a little clunky. They got good compensation for him. I'm talking about just dumping a guy. I'll give you another shot. Just cut a guy. And he becomes a Hall of Famer. Anything? Chris Carter?
Anything? Hey, there you go. All he does is catch touchdowns. And I got a lot of respect for Buddy Ryan, because Buddy Ryan still takes grief for that posthumously. All he does is catch touchdowns. He was trying to help Chris Carter conceal the fact that there were substance abuse issues and they couldn't get through to him. And the only way they ultimately could get through to him was to give him the indignity of being dropped by the team. And it worked. The Vikings claim him on waivers. He gets his life together. He fulfills his full potential. And now there's a bronze bust in Canton. Teams want to get the guy to that point without saying, go do it for one of our competitors.
Yes. Yeah, they do. But a lot of times that doesn't work, unfortunately. You have to actually hit rock bottom in order to hit rock bottom. And most of the time it's not just, hey, we still support you. It's, we don't support you anymore. That's really what can, trigger the thought of, oh, bleep, I actually need to get my life together and, perform better.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.